right, you guys. So today I have a couple of really exciting guests. So first things first, if you are joining us live, please be sure to throw in the comments where you are joining us from. We would love to see kind of what duty stations we're reaching, how far and wide our audience is, and if we can connect with you in some way. If you catch this on the replay, go ahead and throw in #replay, and we would love to circle back and welcome you after the conversation is over. If you have questions or comments or feedback along the way, be sure to throw them in the comment section, and we will bring you into the conversation because we would love to hear your voice and add you to the broadcast. Okay, you guys. So I teased this out yesterday in our private or closed group. It's called Moving the Millie Way. If you don't know about it yet, there's a link to join right in the post copy. Go ahead and join in that group because we have a ton of these fun conversations usually over in there. We kind of consider it like our backyard. That's where we have the cookout and all the fun stuff happening. So today, though, we are joining you from our front porch because we want everyone to be able to see and benefit from this awesome conversation, because today we're going to be talking about school transitions for military kids. So as you probably know, this is the month of the military child, and we are celebrating those little military brats, those awesome kiddos that are in our lives, whether you have some of your own or you reach them in some way. We all know that they face transitions and some challenges, and they're just really amazing and worth celebrating. So today we're going to talk about what some of those seasons look like for a military child. So I am honored to bring on two just rock star military spouses. I was able to chat with them. We're running a little late because we just had a great conversation before we got started. I had to let's get started. So I am super excited to introduce you guys today to, we have Amanda Trimillos over here and Stacy Huisman over here. They are authors of a fantastic book we're going to be talking about a little bit today called Seasons of My Military Student. Thank you guys for joining me today. I'm so excited.
Well, Kelly, I feel like I'm meeting I'm kind of a fangirl myself, so I'm really excited to be here. So,
well, that's fun.
And thanks for all you do for Millie. You do a lot. You do amazing stuff on Millie. So I just want to tell you, you are setting trends, girl. So congratulations.
Thank you, Stacy. We have a great team, so all kudos to them. And Amanda joining us all the way from Germany.
Absolutely from Germany. So I know it's your morning, but it's almost dinner time over here for us. So I love that we can connect literally across the globe to talk about our military kids who are everywhere. So thanks so much for having us. This is fantastic.
I'm so excited. Okay, so I did not give you guys my intro didn't do you justice. So I'd love to give you guys a second to introduce yourselves, talk about your background, how you came to come together, which is really cool too. Just meeting after the book is already kind of underway in person, which I think is phenomenal. So tell us a little bit about, how Seasons of My Military Student came to be, and then we'll jump in a little bit later with some questions and comments. So, okay, we're going to start with Amanda.
Sure, absolutely. So I love to say that, Seasons of My Military Student for me really started probably 20 years ago when I married my husband, and I'd never known anything about the military. I was never part of the military, but I married my husband and he whisked me off overseas, and I found myself in England teaching at a DoDEA school. I had all of the right credentials to teach, but nobody taught me how to be a teacher of military connected kids. So I had students under my desk crying because they didn't have the supplies because their household goods weren't here yet. I had students whose parents returned to the States, but my high school students stayed behind in England because had they moved, they wouldn't have been able to graduate high school. And I'm a new spouse, I'm a new educator, and I'm learning along with them what it means to be military kids. And it was from those experiences as a teacher in the classroom when I started to do my own research, find my own strategies, earn my master's degree. I went back for my doctorate in teacher leadership, all with a focus on how do we support these military connected students whose teachers aren't necessarily getting training to have them in their classrooms. And so that's where the book really began. But all of that was done before I met Stacy. And so when we wrote the book, we had actually never met face to face, but we used each other as experts. Yeah. I was the teacher expert and she was the parent advocate who I always turned to for advice when it came to parents.
Very true. And for me, the book began, I would say, probably when my son, who is now 12, went into first grade, and we literally had planned our retirement. My husband had been in for 20 plus years, and we're done. We're like, I'm ready. And next thing I know, we get orders, and we have 6 weeks to PCS and pack out and move to Germany. And it was at that point where I had made some decisions with my son in school that I realized, as a veteran military spouse, I made some mistakes. I didn't know how quickly we could change schools without notice. And some of the things just didn't match up academically and socially. And for 14 years, I spent my life as a journalist and working in public relations for the city of Las Vegas. I felt very overwhelmed by not understanding that the system is not necessarily stacked against parents, but it's really, the onus belongs to parents to transition their children. And that's when I started writing about it. And I've been writing about military kids issues for, I would say, 8 years, nearly a decade, if you really think about it. And I always turned to Amanda when I was writing articles. Give me that subject matter expert. I need a teacher inside the classroom. I need someone I can draw from to tell me how to connect with the teacher parent together. And of course, I always used Amanda because she was brilliant and it was easy to talk to. And then next thing you know, she said, "Hey, I've got orders to Germany." And I'm like, "Well, I'm in Germany. Hey, my next door neighbor's moving out. Would you like to move in?" She's like, "Yes." And we literally met on the front driveway of her new house right next door to mine. And we finished the book together, having wine over our backyard, to be honest with you.
I love that. That's amazing. And honestly, I hear that story so often. And we were talking earlier, we tell civilians that we have these endeavors that we start, or these communities that we build, or whatnot. Like, I haven't met half of our team at Millie in person, but I mean, whatever. I'd show up on their front porch. That's the beauty of it,
right? I mean, at the end of the day, that's the beauty of it. Yeah. And even better, our publisher, which is Alvareza. Karen is amazing. Terry is amazing.
Terry's watching. She's joining us, you guys.
She is.
Yeah.
Hey, Terry.
Hi, Terry.
I know, right? We've never met either one of them in person. Oh. Amanda and I were both in another book that Terry Barnes and, of course, Alvareza and Karen put out, which is Stories Around the Table. And so this is one of these days, Terry, we're going to meet. Yeah. One of these days.
Well, I actually might have to catch her because she lives near where my family lives now. So I'm going to go. Okay. I promised a cup of coffee one of these days. It's going to happen.
I love it.
Yeah. So actually, I love what you just mentioned, Stacy, about how you had two components. You've got the teacher side and the parent side. I think that is such a powerful and I'm just learning it. My kids are little, so I've got a first and a third grader, and I'm just now learning the importance of really collaborating with the teacher, and then also being empathetic with what the teachers are dealing with, right? So my mom is an educator, so I go to her, and I'm like, okay, I am frustrated by this. Tell me why I need to calm down, or should I be frustrated? You know what I mean? Like, what?
Exactly.
And then what am I communicating when I say XYZ to my kid's teacher? Is she going to hear what I'm saying, or is she going to hear something? And usually it's something totally different. So I love the confluence of the two sort of just minds together, being able to present a holistic view.
And I'll say this, and Amanda will tag on afterwards, but Amanda and I really believe, for military kids in transition and education, that parents and teachers are the boots on the ground for military connected kids. You can have these amazing policies and federal laws that kind of govern from a 10,000 foot view. But at the end of the day, the people who are most invested into your military kid is going to be the parent and the teacher. Yeah. They spend the most time with them. So they're going to be able to effectively transition them in and transition them out better than anybody else. And Amanda, it's the teacher in the classroom that really makes the difference.
Well, it's the teacher in the classroom who's going to set your homework policy, your curriculum, how everything's taught. And it's really hard for us to do that if we don't have a sense of who our students are. And it's the student and the parent, it's all of those connections of all three of us together who is going to give the teacher a really good perspective of who's in our classroom. What do you already know? What gaps do you have in your education? So that way I can teach you where you're at, as opposed to where the state tells me to teach. I'm gonna meet the state requirements, but for the student to really learn, I need to know where they're at. If they don't know how to add decimals, then I can't expect them to multiply decimals. So I need to know where the student's at, and it's that partnership with the parent and the teacher who can make that happen.
So we actually do something kind of similar in a different realm, sort of over in the real estate realm, because we're trying to explain to people what it is that military families are facing when they relocate, just from a real estate perspective. What kind of pressures, what kind of stress, what kind of timelines, like how compressed everything is. And just teaching professionals who we are in relationship with to be empathetic to just the situations that we're up against, and also to be aware of the cool things that we have access to. So in our world, it's the VA loan. And for you guys, you've got the military interstate children's compact and another C. What is it?
MIC3. You got it. Pretty close. You got it.
Yeah,
Military
Interstate
Compact
Coalition. Tons of great resources that you're also trying to help educate educators on.
Right.
And understanding that, like, even though you may not be near an installation, you might still have military connected kids that you should be paying attention to, among everything else.
I like to say, every school district in America has a military connected student, no matter how close or how far they are from a military base. We were in a recruiting squadron for 2 years, and our recruiters are nowhere near a military base. But I would say if you have a recruiter at your school and they have kids, their kids are military connected. Yeah. And I think those kids are often forgotten because they might be one or they might be two and they might be a handful. My first year teaching before I was married, I was 2.5 hours from the nearest base, and my fiance deployed. So I put up a big deployment map, and he sent postcards of everywhere he went. And several of my students asked, well, can my brother send postcards? He's deployed. My cousin's deployed. My uncle's deployed. My aunt's deployed. And by the end of the year, every single time zone on my wall was filled with family members from the classroom who were deployed, and we were not a military connected school, or at least so I thought.
I wonder if that's because we try so hard to assimilate sometimes, and like everything's normal. We're totally just like you. And I think specifically of like our National Guard and Reserve families.
Yes.
Who are, because they don't move. I mean, they see, but as we'll get to the book in a little bit, but in our book we talk about that. They experience a lot of the same seasons or parts of the seasons, especially storms. And storms are, as we put it, deployments, and sometimes they're not even acknowledged by the school. And Amanda and I, we just kind of want to change the conversation about, not necessarily about laws and policies, but about helping them achieve academically and socially in school, no matter the age, K through 12.
Love that. Okay, let's do it. Let's jump in. So tell me about the seasons concept, and just give us an overview. Maybe Amanda, let's start with you.
Sure. So a big overview is, in the book, Seasons of My Military Student, practical ideas for parents and teachers. The whole book is focused around this, what we call the seasons of transition. And the idea of the seasons is you have a traditional school year that starts in August or September, where everybody starts school, and then they go through, and in June when school gets out, everybody leaves. But for a military connected student, we don't start with the school year. We start our seasons with what we call the season of leaving. And that's where a family is just getting the sense, the anticipation that they're expecting orders. So the season of leaving maybe starts even before you have orders and you know where you're moving, but you know you're going to move. So everybody who has orders or who is expecting orders to move this summer, we say that they're in the season of leaving. And it's in that season of just anticipating the move that a student's academics are going to shift, their social encounters are going to shift, their emotions are going to shift. And so we need to be with them and be their support now as they're leaving, and as the parents and the teachers are preparing them for the season of arriving when they arrive at their new school. So a lot of people hear the season of leaving, but if they're leaving in April, then by the end of April, 1st of May, they might already be in the season of arriving, and that does not follow a school year.
Right.
No. And that's one of the beauties of why we've kind of chunked this out, so that it is we believe, Amanda and I believe that military kids have these particular seasons, as Amanda referred, but in each one of these seasons, there's strategies that parents and teachers can do in schools can help with. So as Amanda referenced, we're in the season of arriving. I don't know, my next door neighbor's leaving. I'm dying. I'm going to miss her like crazy. I can't even tell you. And she's about ready to go through withdrawal, and she's gathering all the documents, getting ready to leave, creating an education binder. The next one is a season of arriving, which is where most military families would think, or teachers think the seasons begin, but it's really kind of the middle of our season, or our year, I should say. The season of arriving really begins the day you pull away from your station and you're on your way to your next base. It covers most of the summer for summer PCS, but of course, if you're moving in the middle of winter, it begins the minute you pull away from base, and it goes all the way until the first 2 weeks of school. So it's about registration. It's about avoiding the summer slide. It's about continuing to build your education binder and trying to tell the story of your military connected kid, so that when you do register for school, they have more than this flimsy little piece of paper with maybe 2 scores and a couple of grades that will tell them about their academic history. And they're actually tell them the idea of a binder is to give them a little bit more of a well-rounded history of a military kid in terms of school. And it goes all the way, this season continues all the way to the first 2 weeks, where we hope and we definitely recommend that you have a parent-to-teacher conference to really introduce your child and the who, what, when, why, and how of how your kid has got here. So it's an important season, probably the most chaotic season for parents, and it's the one we probably worry about the most in all military connected kids. I can speak for most parents. This is the part that we bite our nails. Are they going to make a friend? Are they going to be okay? Are they in the right classroom? We don't know.
Okay, so talk to me so growing would be the next one.
Sure. So growing, I personally think that growing is probably the most difficult or challenging season for military connected kids, because in the season of arriving, you have welcome packets, you have buddy programs, there's all of these ways to help the student learn where the cafeteria is, learn where the library is so they don't get lost. But your military connected kids will often say that it's in those 2 weeks you meet a lot of fake friends. And once the buddy programs are removed because the student knows where they're going, now your child's in the season of growing. Have they made friends? Do they actually have a group that they can go to and sit with now that their buddy is no longer assigned to them? We know that they're in the right class because of everything that happened in the season of arriving, but do we know that they're in the right content level? So for example, when I was teaching 10th grade, I would often have 10th graders come into my class who had already read Romeo and Juliet. Well, guess what we're just about to enter? Romeo and Juliet. So they're now repeating content. And that doesn't really work well for a student who is constantly repeating a subject level, or often even worse is they have gaps in their education when they come in because they haven't read something, or we're 3/4 of the way through Romeo and Juliet and they've never heard of Shakespeare. How are these students expected to do well in a class when they're growing and trying to figure out where are they fitting academically? Are they really building up a friendship base? And so most students would say that that's the hardest season that nobody talks about. And this is often the longest season for a military connected student until they really find their base and they really engage with a peer group and they really get into the groove of their education, of their classroom. So Stacy, I'll let you talk about the season of thriving.
Which is what we're in now, because we're wearing purple, because that's really what that season of thriving is about. It begins basically when you think the student has fully integrated into the school. And a great example of that is, I think Amanda said this once, and I loved the way she said this, it's when the student starts to wear the school colors and the school starts to wear the colors of a military child, which means celebrating Purple Up, or acknowledging kind of the unique lifestyle that military connected kids live. And I think this is where this is the collective sigh of relief that all parents across the board have It's this season, and this is the season of thriving. And I will tell you, my kids are really in it, and they are growing. They're taking risks. They are trying out for leadership roles. They are doing new things that they wouldn't have done before because they were either didn't have the social support system or didn't really feel confident at school to take these type of risks. But they're in a good place, and they're taking these risks and asking for leadership roles and trying out for new clubs and trying new things. And this is the part that all parents dream about. I really want to say that I think most parents who don't move around as much as we are, experience a long season of thriving where their kids are building on top of experience and experience. Every time we move, we kind of reset that a little bit. And I think this is the part where parents and teachers can both celebrate and know that their kids, that they've done the right thing for their kids.
Do you feel like, I guess there's so many things that are dependent on this, but I can't help but wonder if like the more often and the better prepared we are at these transitions, the more quickly our kids can kind of cycle through and hit that thriving point and stay there, no matter how many. Yeah, right? So it's a skill to build, right?
I mean, think about this. Amanda talks about this too, and she can talk about it. She calls it the gap and overlap. So we really believe that unless they're settled socially, their academics are never going to come into play.
Right.
So if you're not smoothing out the transition, which means doing all the legwork ahead of the time and during the season of arriving, which means trying to make friends, learn new clubs, getting them enrolled, touring the school, finding the right classroom, they're going to hit these bumps along the way, which are just setbacks. They're speed bumps that prevent them from really driving full throttle to the season of thriving. So the academic piece and the social piece are so important. I just cannot begin to tell you as a parent, they have to match in order for them to get there.
Well, and I think, an example is, one of the smoothest transitions we had really engaged with the teacher in the classroom. And, I'm a parent, I'm a teacher, I'm the author of a book, and I didn't realize that this was happening in my daughter's classroom, but within 2 weeks of school, right on time, the teacher called and said, "You have a new child. I'd like to meet with you to talk about how your child is integrating." And when I came to meet, I'm thinking gaps, overlaps, academics. And we covered all of that, of course, but she also told me that the teacher went out to the lunchroom to see who my daughter was sitting with at lunch. Did she have friends that she was hanging out with between classes? How many times was she raising her hand to participate in class? And so she was taking and looking at my whole daughter, not just the academic side of my daughter, which as a teacher, she kind of had the right to do, but she was already engaging with me of she has a core group of friends. And I was suddenly relieved. My daughter could participate a little bit more in class, that she could see on my daughter's face that she knew the answer, but for my daughter, it was too risky to raise her hand. So let's already in the second week of school, let's start pushing her toward the season of thriving. My words, not hers. But it was, how do we encourage her to raise her hand more? Because for my daughter, that was a risk.
Well,
and so.
No, I was just going to say, I think like recognizing inconsistencies is a big deal. And so that's where the importance of communicating with your teachers comes in.
Right.
And this has been a hard lesson for me because I'm just, I'm busy and my kids are doing okay with their grades. But like, if I'm communicating with the teacher, the more I'm reaching out and saying, "Hey, how are they doing?" The more I'm going to say like, "What do you mean he's shy? Like he's not shy," or, like different little things like that. So you guys have to be, even if you don't have time to volunteer in the classroom, I know that's always the go-to advice is, well, you should be volunteering in the classroom or go and eat lunch with your kids. Well, if that's not an option for you, just open up the lines of communication. Like, I want my kid to thrive. I need to be sure that he or she is doing okay socially and emotionally first and foremost. I don't know.
That's right.
I think that's huge.
I think, and I'll just say one of the best examples is, it was actually just last year, and I wrote about this teacher, and I put her in for the Blue Star family, what was a neighbor award. And she made top 10, which was so cool. But we moved from overseas, not last year, the year before, and we were homeless, basically. We were sleeping on air mattresses. And we had to start school. My husband went right back to work. And I literally come in with this giant binder full of material. I'm ready to meet her teacher. I meet with her after school. My daughter's in 4th grade at the time. And I walk in and I was like, okay, here's this, here's what she does. And she's like, listen, I read through your binder and I'm going to tell you, she's behind in math, she's ahead in reading, and she's really behind in science. And I'm going to tell you, we're going to work on that. And I just looked at her for a minute, and then she grabbed my hand, and what she said to me, she said, Mom, I got this. You can let go. And it was that moment where my lips started quivering, and I started thinking, I'm like, how does she know? And she says, I'm a military spouse. I get it.
Wow.
And I literally went home. I went into my car, and I just cried because I realized at that moment that somebody else had my kids back, that someone else was going to make sure that she found a friend, a leadership, and who else is going to do that besides a teacher? No law is going to make them engage better at school. That's why teachers matter, and a parent needs to communicate it. So
I love that. I'm gonna give you a second.
I got teary. I heard that story so many, and I got teary because she called me that night and told me what happened, and every time she says it, I get teary-eyed for them.
No,
I know,
huge.
because it just tells you what a difference a good teacher will make.
Yeah.
I mean, really, at the end of the day, it's parents and teachers. They make the biggest difference in a kid's school.
So just personally, I think for me, we've been pretty stable for the past few years. So I've had this extended season of thriving, which I am grateful for. And I'm like, can we please stay here? Because the kids are doing great, But I still, I still wonder, even just with transitions into new school years with a new teacher, like, do you see how amazing my kid is? Like, I need you to see that, because maybe sometimes it's not as overt.
True.
But because every kid is different, and I've got, two that are very different, and I'm like, I need to know that how amazing they are. Like, you need to communicate that to me. And teachers are amazing people. And you're right, you get those just really great ones, and it makes life worth living.
And sometimes, and listen, the military kid way, to be honest with you, is you're not going to always have that great teacher. Right. And you still have to figure out how to make them understand, okay, you may not like my kid, or your chemistry's off, but listen, we just moved here, and I need to make sure you understand, like, he had a different curriculum his last year. You have to cut him some slack. He had Common Core. We're not doing Common Core in this state. It's communication. Communication. So
Amanda, talk to us about the storms that you guys reference in your book, because I love that you're keeping it all kind of like weather-centric. I think that's phenomenal. What a great teaching moment. Yeah, you guys, I can tell what you do.
Absolutely.
Well, and it's about storms.
Sure. So storms we talk about, and storms can happen in any of those seasons because we're military families, and storms can come at any time. So storms really we talk about deployments, separations, extended TDYs, or my family does a lot of back-to-back TDY, so back-to-back temporary duties, where my husband is typically gone 2 to 3 weeks out of the month. But because he comes home for an overnight and out again, it's a TDY. We talk about geo-bacheloring when the military member moves ahead, but the family stays behind. And all of those are storms that really begin to impact the military connected student in the classroom because things are different. A parent's missing, a parent's not there, and then things are going on in the student's mind of what's happening in the news, and they're very aware of world events and staying up late. So all of those storms come together, and your brightest, your smartest student is still going to start struggling in the classroom because they're distracted by their personal events of a deployment or a separation. And so I always say, it's so important at that point for the parents to reach out to the teacher and let the teacher know what's going on, and for the teacher to recognize that missing homework might be more than my dog ate my homework or I lost my homework. Missing homework could be something serious going on with the student, anywhere, again, from them just watching the news and being worried about a parent to anything that could be going on. History class, especially when you talk about world events, for the military connected students, it's real and it's personal, and it's not some, place happening on the other side of the world. It's happening to them in their house because they have a member there. And so those storms really shake us up no matter what season we're in.
And I will piggyback on that. I run a military kids club at my child's, one of my kids, elementary school. And one of the parents, whose husband is a Marine and he flies helicopters, there was not too long ago, there was a crash of helicopters, a Marines. And she sent me a note because we were having military kids club that week. And she's like, my daughter's a mess. Even though she knows her dad is safe, she saw it on the news. Like she doesn't, I just want to let you know, like if you're talking about anything special in particular today, just know that she is upset. So it was really interesting to know that. I was like, well, did you talk to your teacher about it? And she was like, I hadn't thought about it. And I'm like, you need to let your teacher know too, because this, I mean, it's going to be distracting if this young lady is thinking about her dad as he's deployed, and saw on the news that 2 helicopters went down. It is a very distracting moment for that child. And she went to me because she knows I'm invested in her child because I run this after school club for all these kids. So it's just a really interesting understand that it may not be a heavy storm such as a tragic death or an injury. It's these little hiccups that we just got to think about.
The more mature they get, the older they get, the more kind of aware of their surroundings they are, and actually like kind of starting to comprehend bigger topics like war and what we do in the military, or what our service members do in the military.
Right. So very true.
Yeah. Okay, so since we talk a lot about PCSing, it's kind of our thing. What are some like practical tips for parents to prepare for a PCS? And then on the back end, what are some things to monitor and be observing in our kids after a PCS?
Great question.
Yeah. Well, whoever wants to take it, I'll give you.
Well, I'll start with the education binder, Amanda, and you take over the exit plan, and we'll go that way.
Okay.
One of the tips and strategies that Amanda and I like to use a lot and suggest, actually, we live by it ourselves. So we're not just saying it, go do it, and we're not using it. I live by this. Is we build what we call an education binder. And like as mentioned before, an education binder is something that a parent basically is a binder that tells the education history of your child. So my kids have moved 5 times, and my daughter's in 4th grade by the time we moved. Multiple curriculums, multiple report cards, multiple things she's experienced that a single transcript is never going to tell a teacher about my kid. So what we do is we tell parents to advocate for yourself and advocate for your child by collecting these and documenting your child. And these are things like multiple years of report cards, not just one, multiple years. So a counselor can actually see how a child's progressed over the years. And on those report cards, make little notations that said homecoming. My husband came home from deployment. She missed a lot of school. She had low attendance the end of that quarter, or even things that they were deployed, or injuries, sickness, things of that nature. We also ask that you put things such as a teacher-to-teacher letter. This is a very simple tool that you can partner with any teacher nearly at any grade. And you have your current teacher write a letter about your student to the receiving teacher. And even though you may not know who that teacher is, you want that you want that teacher to be able to write what kind of student he is, because no one can see a military kid better than their teacher on a day-to-day basis. Does he like to sit in the front? Does my son does he raise his hand? Does he not? Is he a good student? Does he need friends? Would he benefit from a buddy? Those are all things a teacher can communicate to another teacher. And it's a very simple letter. It doesn't have to be robust, but you got to give a teacher a little bit of time to put this together. Don't ask it the second to last day of school.
Yep.
That is not what you want to do to a teacher. They have a lot of things on their plate. Because military kids and parents, our military families do not get the benefit of a teacher's lounge. It says, I had Johnny last year in my classroom. This is his sibling. Oh, I know his mom. That doesn't happen at new schools. So make sure you document that by teacher-to-teacher letter, lots of report cards, things of like evaluations. And I'm going to say this right now because this just happened to my friend. You are to keep all your standardized test scores for multiple years. We were just recently, we had they're taking tests to go into middle school, and a couple of military kids were not invited to take this particular test because they only had 1 year of standardized test scores on file. So they were never notified that they qualified to take this particular accelerated test that allows them into a certain placement. And it angered me at first because I just thought, there you go again. Here we go. But I was able to reach in quickly and grab standardized test scores for multiple years and allow my daughter, and I've recommended other families to get these, to grab these documents and make sure. I made them make an oath. I will never allow anyone else to be responsible for my child's documents than myself. And I will always carry them with me, and I will never pack them in the box. So that's what I want all parents to do at this moment.
Oh my gosh.
If you're about ready to leave, gather a binder, you put it together, and you don't let it out of your sight. Include shot records, get evaluations, PT, speech therapy, IEPs, 504s, a litany of things belong in this binder. And basically, at the end of the day, you want to pass it over to a teacher or a counselor and say, before you place my child in the classroom, read this. And that is going to be the beginning of you telling your child's story and helping with continuity.
And also, let's be real. Our brains are in a million places when we PCS.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to remember the questions asked the doctor at your routine annual exam.
Exactly.
So, like, coming in and saying, like, here's my kid, he's really great, it's probably not enough. So give them actual, like, concrete things to look at in a language that they understand. I love that teacher-to-teacher letter because they speak the same language, and we don't know, like, the buzzwords or, like, the things that other educators might pick up on really quickly in just a couple of phrases, whereas it would take me, like, so long to try to articulate my kid's personality or learning.
I will say, as a parent, especially during PCS season, I tend to project what I'm feeling onto my kids and anyone else around me. So a teacher can kind of cut right to the chase and tell exactly who it is without parents adding all the adjectives and the worry that comes with trying to explain, the idiosyncrasies of my child.
You're a writer too. So
the binder,
you guys are writers.
Don't forget the binder.
Lots of words. All right, so Amanda, tell us what we can be looking out for on the flip side once we arrive at a new duty station.
Sure. So on the flip side, when we arrive, well, first we're going to take that education binder and we're going to use that for registration to make sure our child is in the right classes, hopefully even with the right chemistry of teacher, and bring them in. And we talked about, within those first 2 weeks of school, we want to have the parent and the teacher and even the student, if the student's available, to come together and talk about what, where the student is academically, different classes, because we can find that a student is really, really strong in one area and has several weaknesses in another area. And it's the same student, but just from the curriculum and everything, they might have a misalignment. I like to find out, what does the student have a passion for? And have that conversation. And so that way the teacher can start thinking about, your student loves soccer. I have a whole group of students in this class who love soccer. So when I do my seating arrangement, I'm going to try to take your new student and put them next to one of these students who like soccer. And I'm going to try to engage them into a conversation to help build a friendship. I'm a big believer in the invitation. So it's not just telling the student there's a soccer team or there's a basketball team or there's a drama class, but actually inviting the student and saying the first meeting is on this day. I invite you to come. And that way the student feels a sense of belonging. And so they're not walking in blindly with a bunch of strangers, but that somebody's inviting them to come and they're welcome to come. And I think one of the biggest things to remember is, we're all, Stacy and I are wearing our big purple up shirts mine talks about how wonderful and courageous and joyful and kind and great military kids are. And I think that's true, but that doesn't mean that they like to move. That doesn't mean that they like to start over. That doesn't mean that they like to be outgoing and they like to engage in friendships. It's just the situation that we are forcing them into. And so while we can come up with all of these wonderful ways to describe our military connected students, in the back of their mind, they might be thinking, I don't want to do this again. I just left a best friend. I don't want to put in the effort to make a new best friend knowing that I'm going to leave again in 2 years. And so it's having the teacher and the parent and the school counselor, the school liaison officer, the military family life counselor, anybody, a coach, anybody who's within that student's network, to recognize when a student isn't putting forth the effort in order to engage. Because we want them to have all of the things that all of these shirts and everything says about them, that they're resilient and they've got grit and they're outgoing and they've seen the world, but that only works for them if they have a strong support base. And that's what we're trying to give them in those first couple weeks of school, and then on through all of the seasons, is that support base. So when they look at themselves and say, but I don't feel this today.
Right.
Yeah,
I don't want to be a military kid today. We give them their passion back.
Right.
And give them the space to find it themselves too, a little bit, instead of,
Sure.
I know, and again, I've already mentioned, like, everybody's kid is different. So you
Right.
may have a more introverted style kid versus, so you're going to have all these sort of things. But again, you're the only one that knows that. The new teacher
Right.
doesn't necessarily know that unless you're equipping them to, understand your child. So.
And we have to go, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention why we need all this stuff. I mean, let's just think about it for a minute. Why is there a Purple App? Why is there a month of the military child? Why is ESSA suddenly, after all this time, wanting to track military connected students through every state now has to track military connected students. It's part of the law. Why do we have a compact that says that we can transition, that military families should be given the right, not right's a strong word, but should be afforded to be a flexibility in placement, should be able to enroll at the same time in kindergarten, should not be penalized for moving in the middle of the year. There are reasons why we're wearing purple today. Yeah. And it's because the military studies and research again and again show, especially, and I'll say this, especially we've been talking about elementary school a lot and some a little bit of high school, but their identity for any child really rests inside the house for much of their younger years. But when you hit tweens and teens, their identity relies outside of the house into their social structure. And that's where you'll find that parents, especially active duty members, will see the struggle of their military kids through high school and will opt to get out because they will not put their kids through this anymore. It is torture for parents. It is absolute torture to choose between serving your country or your kid's mental health. Yeah. That's what it comes down to. So being able to provide these small steps and remove some of these speed bumps and create an environment at school is a forced readiness issue at the end of the day. Because my husband will get out if he sees my son struggle. End of story. There's 26 years of a veteran, military person that says, my family's more than me after all this time. So just remember, there's a reason why we're wearing purple. There's a reason why kids need our support. There's a reason why military kids in transition and education is an issue. Yeah. And that's what Man and I are here to tackle, at least from the parent-teacher perspective.
So there's a reason why I'm not wearing purple too, you guys. It's not because I'm being contrary. I can't find it. So Terry is like our cheerleader today. Thank you so much, Terry.
We love Terry.
Dropping every link possible. It's such a great. She's like, this is great. I love the behind the scenes help. She says so true. Military kids aren't born resilient. They develop resilience when they have a strong support network. So I love what you guys are doing from the family side. I really love what you're doing from the educator side too, though, because it's like screaming from the rooftop. Like I said, see how special these kids are. If you touch a military child, which you probably will at some point in your career as an educator, whether you yourself are not affiliated or are, or maybe a grandpa or something served, or in my mom's case, her kids, she's got a National Guard, some National Guard grandbabies and some active duty grandbabies. Even in her district, near a decent sized installation, there were educators who were like, "Oh, I don't think we have any military kids here." And she's like, "What? Yes, of course you do." So this is important stuff. So,
you blend really well.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to wrap up, you guys. This has been such a joy having you on. I just feel like we could have this conversation for 3 more hours. But We don't want
I
you to
could.
Don't give away the whole book. Yeah. Tell everyone watching this now and later where they can find you, where they can find some of the resources that you were talking about, and how they can keep in touch and follow along.
Amanda, go for it.
Yeah, so I'll start with, so Seasons of My Military Student does have a website, and it's seasonsofmymilitarystudent.com, and that's where, all of the resources for, how do you find the book, but more than that, keeping up to date with blogs and new resources and everything that's coming up, to make sure that we have the resources we need and we're talking about the resources. So we have a website, and then also Facebook, Seasons of My Military Student is the public page where we keep everything abreast of what's going on in the policy world and in the conversation world of military connected students.
And I'll just tag on to that. We actually have a really cool group, Kelly. And
I'm in it. I love your group.
I know.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, it's one of those things that it's the dream of Amanda and I to build this full of every parent and teacher who touches a military connected kid. It's Seasons of My Military Student, parent group K through 12. Check us out on Facebook. It's a group. We post the latest, the greatest. We answer your questions when it comes to celebrating military kids and helping them. We have some great conversations in this thing, and it's a place where you can kind of ask your own people.
Yeah.
Hey, what do I do? What do I do about this? They're not transferring his grades. What do I do? They're not honoring his placement. Help me figure this out. And the entire community jumps in and helps out. So that's something. Join our Facebook group. We'll let you in. Promise.
Promise. So do you guys have any parting words for PCSers who are like freaking out? I know in our group, in the Moving the Millie Way, the group, we're getting all kinds of questions right now. Like, we're getting into that season of leaving. Like, give us some calm. What are some calm words?
I'm going to say it's going to be okay, especially if you're in the season of leaving, because eventually you're going to pick up and leave. The car's going to go away. You're going to drive away. But in the meantime, talk to your teacher, talk to the classroom teacher, be open and upfront about what's happening at home, and ask them to be upfront about what's happening in the classroom. And I always say, maybe ask them, do they really need to keep doing their homework? Or what projects do they need to keep to make sure that the movers don't pack it up in a moving box, and now suddenly your student fails a class because their science project is on a truck somewhere. So keep really open up those lines of communications between the parent and the teacher to make sure that everything's where it needs to be as the student finishes out their school year and empties out their lockers.
And parents, don't forget about that education binder.
Yeah.
I don't care if your kid's in a sophomore year in high school. It turns into a college-bound binder at the end of the day. It shows your volunteer hours, your leadership awards, everything like that. That binder is going to grow with that child. Do not pack it. Mark my words.
In your car with you in your body. It goes with like your birth certificates and your marriage license.
Yes, all of it.
And your immunization cards. Because let me tell you, just because you think those are centralized somewhere in some cloud,
they're not.
They're not. And then your kid gets too many shots. Anyway, that never happened to us.
In there.
Oh, ladies, thank you so
Kelly.
much for your time, for just spending way more than I had planned on, but I love it because this is such good information. I can't wait to share this far and wide. And yeah, keep in touch. We love what you're doing.
Thank you for doing what you do. We appreciate you too, Kelly.
Thanks.
Keep it up.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Okay, you guys, that was a lot of fun. I just learned so much, and I am so enthused by what Stacy and Amanda are doing, especially with their Seasons of My Military Student kind of curriculum. Honestly, I mean, you could almost view this as like a crash course on how to do these school transitions well and better support your students and your military kiddos. So enjoy the rest of the month of April. This is such a fun month. There are so many great activities going on for the month of the military child. If you guys want to share things that are happening at your kids' school, please do that in the comments. We would love to see what's happening at your installation or in your community in order to enhance the lives of military students across the world. So until next time, you guys, thanks so much for joining us. Bye.